Tomorrow, the mayor is expected to meet with the border czar, Tom Homan, here in the city. This as the federal government clawed back more than $80 million given to the city to house migrants. As Jennifer Bisram reports, City Controller Brad Lander is now calling on city officials to step in.
This is highway robbery.
New York City Comptroller Brad Lander Wednesday afternoon after he says his office found over $80 million missing from the city's accounts. FEMA funds, he says, were awarded to the city to house asylum seekers.
These are folks who, for the most part, registered with the federal government when they crossed. In many cases, got sent here by the federal government. New York City stepped up to provide shelter and services and pay for that.
It comes after Elon Musk, head of the White House's Department of Government Efficiency, known as DOGE, claimed the money was being wasted on luxury hotels to house migrants. The Department of Homeland Security says 4 people were recently fired for making unauthorized payments to those luxury hotels. A spokesperson saying in part, FEMA was funding the Roosevelt Hotel that serves as a Tren de Aragua base of operations and was used to house Laken Riley's killer. There will not be a single penny spent that goes against the interest and safety of the American people.
Sending $59 million to a migrant hotel to house illegal immigrants when there are still people in North Carolina and California who have not received FEMA funding is not something that this administration is going to tolerate.
That from White House officials during a briefing after the funds were seized.
The federal program we're talking about, the Shelter and Services Program, has a $12.50 a night cap on hotel and shelter prices. And obviously New York City paid much more than $12.50 a night for the tents at Floyd Bennett Field and Randall's Island, much less for the hotels here.
The mayor's office says it's conducting an internal investigation, adding our office has already engaged with the White House about recouping these funds, and we've requested an emergency meeting with FEMA to try and resolve the matter as quickly as possible. In Lower Manhattan, Jennifer Bisram, CBS News, New York.
A fragile ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas remains in place after a suspenseful couple of days. Hamas previously indicated it would pause the release of Israeli hostages this Saturday because of a dispute over the amount of aid entering the Gaza Strip. But the group reversed course Thursday, saying it will now release 3 more hostages as planned. Mediators hope that's enough to get Israel back on board after defense officials here threatened a major escalation.
The new Gaza war will be different in intensity and will not end without the defeat of Hamas.
I hope the ultimatum we heard from Trump will speed the negotiation.
The future of the ceasefire is still in doubt, though, with President Trump pushing for Hamas to release all hostages this week. The president claiming, quote, all hell will break out if that doesn't happen.
After weeks of hearings, one of the more controversial nominees to Trump's cabinet, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., has been confirmed as health secretary, though this decision was met with much blowback from Democratic senators who all voted no for Kennedy.
A vote to confirm Mr. Kennedy is a vote I truly believe many, many Republicans and most Americans will eventually very deeply regret.
It was the complete opposite end of the spectrum for the Republicans, with all but one of them voting to confirm him. The lone dissenting vote, you ask? Mitch McConnell, who cited wanting to protect the use of vaccines, which Kennedy is notably against. With Kennedy confirmed now, the Trump administration looks to get their next candidate confirmed in Linda McMahon, the wife of former World Wrestling Entertainment owner Vince McMahon. If confirmed, she'll serve as Secretary of Education, even though Trump wants to close the Department of Education at some point.
Oh, I'd like it to be closed immediately. Look, the Department of Education's a big con job.
Though McMahon presented a different vision at her hearing.
It is not the president's goal to defund the programs. It is only to have it operate more efficiently.
Like many of Trump's nominees, however, she has also been met with much opposition. From Iowa City, Jordan Tovar, DI-TV.
5:33, want to turn our attention to the latest in President Donald Trump's quest to cut the size of the U.S. government.
As Jared Hill reports, hundreds of federal workers have gotten layoff notices, with more expected in the coming days and weeks.
This morning, hundreds of federal workers are out of a job and thousands more are bracing for sweeping layoffs.
We have here rule of the bureaucracy as opposed to rule of the people.
Speaking virtually at a World Summit Thursday, Elon Musk, head of President Donald Trump's Department of Government Efficiency, said entire federal departments should be deleted.
If you don't remove the roots of the weed, then it's easy for the weed to grow back.
The long-term scope isn't clear, but CBS News has learned recent federal hires still on probationary status across several departments have received termination notices. Same for about 1,000 workers at the Department of Veterans Affairs as of yesterday. Democrats protested outside the VA.
9 million veterans are watching you give them the middle finger. And we're not going to stand for it.
U.S. officials have also confirmed that DOJ employees are examining the IRS, though yesterday President Trump told reporters he doesn't plan to close the agency.
I think that the Internal Revenue Service will be looked at like everybody else.
On a jam-packed Thursday that included meetings with India's Prime Minister, the president also signed an executive order directing his administration to look at imposing tariffs to match those that other countries put on U.S. goods. Critics warn it could hurt efforts to fight inflation.
Prices could go up somewhat short-term, but prices will also go down.
The president argued those reciprocal tariffs would level the playing field for American workers. Jared Hill, CBS News.
I'm Atrel Nashar in Washington. President Trump approving plans for new rounds of tariffs on both adversaries and allies, raising fears the U.S. could be pulled into a trade war at a time when inflation is back on the rise. President Trump putting the world on notice. His administration now intends to raise tariffs to match taxes that trading partners charge for American imports.
This is something that should have been done many years ago.
It won't happen right away. Cabinet officials will take until April 1st to produce reports the president will use to make his next moves. This gives trading partners time to negotiate with the White House, which is wrestling with warnings that tariffs can easily come back to bite the American consumer.
Prices could go up somewhat short-term, but prices will also go down.
The president's announcement came 2 days after he signed off on 25% tariffs for steel and aluminum. News that rattled allies, now considering retaliatory action.
If he wants to play hardball, the EU will play hardball.
China has already imposed 10% retaliatory tariffs on American imports, matching President Trump's new levy on Chinese goods. A different strategy coming from India, whose Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the White House Thursday.
We're going to work with India also. We have some very big trade deals to announce in the very near future.
Allies argue the tariffs are uncalled for and are trying to get the president to stand down.
We will be working with the American administration over the coming weeks to highlight the negative impacts.
They harm workers, they harm consumers because the prices go up. They create unnecessary economic disruption.
Back in the U.S., a LendingTree survey finds 3 in 4 Americans believe tariffs will increase prices.
There's an awful lot of people out there who are concerned about the potential for prices to rise, even though we don't necessarily know how all of this is going to play out.
Experts will closely watch how this could impact interest rates, too. The Federal Reserve is already less inclined to lower rates after a new consumer inflation report showed prices rose last month. The effects of tariffs could make their mandate to stabilize prices even tougher. In Washington, I'm Atrel Nashar.